All right. Welcome back to the Breaking Ice podcast. My name is Josh Ferguson, and today we're sitting here with Harold Grinde, and you operate. Oh, I'm blanking right now. One of the outfitting camps.
Yep. Gana River Outfitters.
Gana River Outfitters. That's right. So how long have you been doing that?
I went to Gana in 1996 as a client. I went up there on a sheep hunt with a friend, and I knew the outfitter I'd worked with him in BC, and went back in 97 to build a cabin for him, and he talked me into going into a partnership. So I worked there as a guide and silent partner until 2004, and that was the last year Bill was there. His name was Bill Mackenzie, the outfitter that I took over from, and he retired at the end of the 2004 season, and I've been managing for 20 years. Yeah, I took over for 2005.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you ever imagine that your life would end up, running a hunt camp way out in the mountains like that?
I don't know that I imagined it. I always thought when I was young and first went to the Yukon as a young guy that I'd love to do that someday.
Yeah.
I didn't ever see the path to getting there.
Well, I don't think it's an obvious path,
right? But it's the mountains, hunting, horses. It's always been my passion, I would say, or one of my passions. Yeah.
So throughout your career, you hunted your whole life? If I had to guess?
Yeah, my dad didn't really hunt, but I had friends that hunted, and from the time I was old enough, I would, hunt around in Alberta where I grew up, and I grew up on a mixed farm in Alberta, so we had some hunting opportunities right on our place. From the time we were big enough, we shot gophers and the bad birds, and
sure, you don't want to shoot the good birds,
magpies and starlings and stuff. The sparrows were all in season all year long. So, we shot everything we could.
That's cool. So when did how long did your family move to Alberta? Where are they from? Kind of take me back a little bit.
My grandpa pioneered in the Rimby area in Alberta where I grew up. He came in 1906, I think. Okay. One of my grandpas, and the other one a year or two later. So I would be third generation in that area of central Alberta. Yeah. So,
nice.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And then had your families and the generations managed the same property over time?
Some of it. My grandpa, on my dad's side, he moved a couple of times until he settled on the home quarter where my dad was raised and grew up. My dad bought a quarter about a mile away from that one when he was fairly young and first got married and farmed there. But he had a bachelor uncle that had some property about 5 miles away.
Okay.
A little closer to a little town called Bluffton. And when he retired, Dad farmed that from a distance, commuting from where he lived, about back and forth 5 miles with all the equipment. And
that's not too much, but it's enough.
Yeah, when I was in grade 1 in 1962, my dad built a new house and, the yard site for a farm. On that property, and we all moved up there when I started grade 1 in the Bluffton
Very
school.
Cool. And what were they farming? Was it like a pretty serious operation? That was the living?
Yeah, in those days it was a big farm. My dad had the first combine in the Rimby area.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody else had a thrashing machine, and he had a thrashing crew for a while, but he was the first one in the area that bought a combine, an old Massey Super 27 it was called.
Very cool.
Yeah, it would do maybe 10% of what the big machines do today.
Sure,
yeah.
But it was
200%
of what
that was the leading edge technology at the time. So Dad had about 4 quarters of land when we moved to Bluffton and acquired 2 or 3 more while we were there. And so a fairly decent size for that era, mixed farming operation. He had about 100 head of beef cows and a few registered Herefords, and
then crops.
Grew some grain and hay for our own stock. Pretty much fattened the steers, and
so it was mostly in the service of raising animals.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I see. That's awesome.
Not big grain production. Nobody did big grain production, but we sold a little grain if we had more than we needed, and but mainly raising animals.
And kind of paint the picture of your childhood. Like what was your day-to-day like?
We didn't do morning chores, but we were about 4 miles from school. So in the morning, we'd get up and have breakfast. My mom was a teacher, so she would go to school as soon as drive to school as soon as breakfast was over, and us kids had to make our lunches for the day and do all the dishes and clean the house and jump on the bus.
How many kids?
There was 7 in my family.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And we were spread out enough, and I was kind of in the middle. The older ones left as I was going through school, and
Very cool. And then, you go to school and then come back, and would there be more chores on the farm?
At the end of the day, when we got home, we basically had a quick snack, changed into work clothes. I try to teach my kids that you don't have to wear the same clothes all day. You can put on work clothes for working around, and you don't have to get everything dirty and wash clothes every day. We literally, we had a set of clean clothes to wear to school and a set of work clothes, and those lasted a week.
Yeah, you don't need to clean the work clothes every night.
No, you don't. Or your school clothes if you just wear them to
That's
school.
true.
Right?
Yeah, fair.
So, but it's a little harder, I guess, today. And so we do way too much laundry. I know that. But that was the routine. Get home, have a snack, change clothes, and go do your chores. Usually an hour or two of chores every night, and then supper and homework, whatever. And might get to watch a hockey game or something. But
pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And when did you leave your house around 18? Kind of like a classic time.
Yeah, not. I stayed, and before I got involved in the outfitting industry, I worked with my brothers. We bought the year I graduated in grade 12. We bought a farm, another 3/4, 10 miles away from where I grew up. And my dad was old enough by then that he was kind of retiring, so we worked with him and did most of the labor on his farm. In exchange for using his equipment to farm this land we'd just bought.
Oh, very cool.
And we worked hard at improving an old rundown farmyard.
Yeah.
And some really nice land, but a rundown farmyard. And we worked at that I worked at that for 5 years. My brothers still have those farms.
Okay.
But after 5 years, my younger brother had gone to the Yukon guiding, and I just knew that's what I wanted.
You had the itch for adventure.
Yeah, so I said, you know what, you guys buy me out on this farm, I'm going guiding. But yeah, we worked in the oil field in the winter.
Yep.
And like most farm kids, got a job in the oil field so you can make money all winter so you can afford to farm in the summer. And that's what I did.
Yeah, there's a kind of set out routine there.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I have a lot of like respect for people who kind of like stay in one place and like really develop an area. Mm-hmm. My family moved from Toronto to central Mexico when I was 9. So my life has just been a series of kind of like re-establishing myself in different places. So, we built a life in Mexico. They're still there, and they built a big, like a land ship. So it's like solar, and they have 300,000 liters of cisterns under their house, and they collect rainwater and stuff like that. Huh. It's a very cool, like, whole situation. Obviously easy to do in Mexico.
Right.
with that winter. And then I came up to Canada for university and spent some time in Ontario and in Thunder Bay. And then through a series of different moves, we ended up here just to, escape the kind of living in a basement situation that we had going on in Ontario as like young people.
Right.
But yeah, so you went to the Yukon. What do you have a memory of like what you would consider your first real hunt? Because you were talking about shooting gophers and birds and stuff, but there's a big difference.
I had some friends that we would do pack trips to the mountains fishing in the summer. In Alberta, so when I was in school, probably we started that, and then about that time when I graduated, if I was home and had time, we would do that. But I literally missed my grad because I was out in the mountains hunting with a pack string with my buddies. So yeah, even when I was still in high school, we started hunting fairly seriously. Just not trophy hunting, but hunting for
meat,
for the pleasure of hunting and for the meat. Right?
Yeah,
So we would do trips out to the foothills on the edge of the mountains in Alberta.
That was hunting deer mostly, or
no, mostly moose and elk and
okay.
deer. All of those moose, elk, and deer.
Okay.
But I shot bears. I don't remember even the first big game animal I shot distinctly. It was probably a moose, but I don't remember for sure.
What about the hunting experience and spending time on the land? What about that captures you?
I think it's, I don't know, it's almost instinctive. I don't know. To me, it was always part of me that I just wanted to be on the land. I wanted to, eat wild meat and just the pursuit part. I think we were born hunters, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we definitely have the instincts for
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah.
we you know, and tactics and strategy. I haven't spent much time hunting. I've been working with a lot of game, and I had friends who hunted, and I would butcher with them and things
Right.
like that. But my time on the land came from when I was 12 up through when I was 30, when I would go on canoe trips every summer for years and years and years and years.
Right.
And I don't know, that was just kind of the culture I fell into. And I think I would think I would really like hunting, but I've just never...
You've never done it? Yeah.
Well, I've been with people when they're hunting, but never owned a gun myself or, you know,
Right.
went hunting myself. Yeah. But, I mean, I eat some of the meat that comes back on the twin, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So when did you... So then you went up to the Yukon and did some serious mountain hunting.
So when I would have been probably 24, I went to the Yukon and guided for, it's called Nisutlan Bay Outfitters, a guy who's still a friend, Bob Hazard. He's getting old now, but I guided 5 seasons for him. And I remember, and it's funny because I know I've talked to some of my crew that say the same thing. Like, and in those days, we didn't make much money as a guide in the bush, but I just couldn't believe that I got paid to have that much
Totally.
fun, right?
Totally.
Like, really? You're going to pay me to do this?
That was my experience guiding as a canoe instructor. It was like, okay.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. Yeah. And so, I mean, we worked hard. We didn't have the support, and it was a different world, no communications. I have copies in my desk of letters I wrote to my dad on a paper from a bag of flour because we didn't, you know.
There wasn't satellite communications or
no,
anything,
there was
right?
no radio communication. We had an old SSB, the old single sideband radio that literally, it might work because it's a low frequency band, and so it bounces off clouds or mountains, and depending on the weather it might work or it might not. And if you had to make a call to the boss in town, you would take the radio on your horse and climb to the top of a mountain somewhere and tie one end of the big long antenna to the saddle horn and the other end to a tree and make your call, right?
And so did you start incorporating horses into your hunting in the Yukon?
That was part of when I arrived there, that's what everybody used. There was no helicopters. That's not allowed in the Yukon. The only jurisdiction where they can use choppers is here. And most of that area in the Yukon, there's not natural strips like we have here, not near as many anyway.
The Mackenzie Mountains are conducive to having those kinds of natural
yes,
strips.
The ribbon bars, more opportunity for landing strips and stuff. So, and big high plateaus where you can land as well. So, but yeah, I grew up using horses. That was part of the allure of going into the guiding and outfitting was the horse aspect.
Oh, really cool.
I mean, I grew up on a farm. I loved to ride. I rode horses as much as I could always. And
so it must have been second nature to kind of, bring that into your hunting.
Yep,
there must have been guys as well who weren't horse handlers,
Yeah, there are outfitters that don't have horses. We're really the only one left out here. Arctic Red has one string, I guess, but other than that, none of the other outfits use horses anymore.
At all with your outfit currently?
No, we don't. We have Super Cubs, so we do our backpack hunts using Super Cubs, and where we can land, we land, and and then we use the horses for the stuff that's a little closer to base camp.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's legendary. That's so cool. So wait, how do you get your horse? They don't winter over out there, obviously.
No.
What do you walk them in?
Years ago, the early outfitters tried it, but it's not good. The horses will survive there if you help them a little with some high energy feed.
Sure.
But the wolves, when it gets dark in the winter,
if
you got to have somebody there watching them, and even then,
that's kind of hardcore.
As they wander a little, the wolves can pick them off. So they tried it, I think, twice and pretty much gave up on wintering horses here. So we bring our horses, our working stock stays at a little place called Montney by Fort St. John, and 2 days on a liner to get up the road to the end of the road at Mac Pass, and we unload there, and from there they've got a 5-day ride to get to our camp.
So you have an expedition every summer just getting to base camp to set up your operation.
Yeah, it's from the time the guides go to shoeing camp to start putting shoes, they're just about 2 weeks, 10 days before they get to camp.
Oh, very cool.
3 or 4 days shoeing, catching the horses, putting a ride on some of the colts, and then Yeah, load them on the liner, 2 days up the road, and then 5 days trail. So yeah, they're 12 days usually by the time they get to camp from.
And then same kind of thing on the way out, obviously.
Yep.
And is that in September when you walk?
Yeah,
them
we
out?
go out the 20th September is
It's getting cold.
the last day at camp. Yep, and we pretty much have to beat the weather so the liner can get up the canal road.
No
right?
kidding.
Yeah. If it's snow and ice, by the time he tries to get in, then you're hooked, and you got to ride the horses all the way down the road, right? So,
And that must really add on some days.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you spent 5 years up in the Yukon. How would how would you characterize the way that experience shaped you? Like in terms of, your character and who you are when you got there to when you left, what were some of your big changes?
I would just say, I don't know that it changed me a lot. I worked with a couple of Tlingit guides in the Yukon, Phil Smith in particular. His dad had owned the outfit before the guy I worked for. He's Tlingit from Teslin area, and amazing bushman. Like I learned a lot of bush skills and stuff from Phil, and hunting. They were amazing hunters, amazing judges, and because he'd grown up in an outfit and worked with his dad with clients, he had learned, how to be open and talk to people a little more than some Indigenous people that tend to be a little bit reserved. Phil wasn't like that. He was very open, and but mainly what I would say changed was I learned a lot of really good bush skills and bushcraft and stuff from Phil.
And then from there, it wasn't like directly up to the Mackenzies, eh?
No, from there, Phil actually bought the area from the owner that I worked for, and I didn't see myself working for him. So I got a job working for an outfitter in BC, and it was the area that this Bill Mackenzie, who owned Gana before I took it over, it was his old area, and he was there to show me how to hunt the area, because he was coming up to Gana and there was a new owner.
And obviously these different regions have, different
absolutely.
behaviors of the animals.
Yeah.
It's a
Totally
completely different
skill. Species that you're hunting, like in BC we hunted goats, and it was quite different. The terrain and the, I guess, vegetation is completely different in BC than it is in the Mackenzies. In the Yukon, we rode with a saddle under hanging on our leg, an axe hanging off the saddle under your leg is how we traveled, and you could chop your way through anything, right?
Yeah.
In BC, you carry a chainsaw because a 3-foot diameter tree will fall across the trail, and there's no way around, right? And you'll be there a long time with your axe whittling through it. So in BC, you literally ride with a chainsaw on your saddle horse because. Yeah, if you have big tree falls across, you can't find your way around. In the Mackenzies, it's better than the Yukon. You can pretty much beat your way through and find your way anywhere without having to cut anything. The vegetation is quite sparse compared to other places.
You clearly have developed a deep relationship with the land that you hunt now, but was it your favorite when you got here?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And to me, I've told lots of people I wish I'd have been born, 200 years earlier when we were settling the West. Like that would have been my cup of tea, right? but the Mackenzies, because it's so untouched and unspoiled, and there's just so remote that's right up my alley.
Yeah, it is. There's something like even yesterday. We were just for the viewers. I was on the flight that you guys flew out on skis yesterday, and. There's just a sense of like remoteness and like peace out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's kind of really hard to put into words, but you kind of feel like cradled by the mountains all around you, but you still have it's very open at the same time. So you don't feel like suffocated. It's a really beautiful location.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in the summer there it's just stunning. Like,
oh yeah, it's stunning. Yeah, even in the winter it's stunning. But yeah, it's beautiful. We're very blessed. We have a wonderful base camp on a lake, and we've got an airstrip, and so we've got those options of wheels or floats.
So are you a pilot as well?
I took my pilot training, but I don't fly anymore.
Okay, so you hire pilots.
We hire pilots
to come and fly the Cubs.
Yeah,
and you guys must land wherever. Like you don't really have rules.
Well, yeah, we try to. some of the strips we have are permanent. Some are just smooth gravel bars, and they change year to year. So yeah, you have to learn to judge where you can land.
You need a certain amount of judgment and skill to fly in the mountains like that.
Absolutely, yeah. You want skilled pilots.
That's very cool. But I'm sure the experience is novel enough that people are interested in coming to do it, or is it difficult to find pilots?
It's hard enough. We're fortunate in that we've had several retired guys that just love the bush and they love to fly still. And we're on our third one now with those type of guys that are coming. We had one pilot that flew for us for over 20 years, and he died of he had bladder cancer and passed away sadly. And we were fortunate. We were kind of scrambling, trying to find somebody, and we got another guy that his wife had died of cancer, and he was just kind of kicking around, but he loved to fly. And a little history, he'd actually flown a little for Perry here. With his own, he had a 185, I think, at one time, and did a few flights for Perry. He worked at the mines at Tungsten for many years and had his own aircraft. So he'd done lots of flying, built his own Super Cub, and he came and just loves it. But right now he's building a houseboat on Babine Lake and wants to get his boat finished. It's this houseboat done this summer, and didn't really want to come. So my niece's husband is learning to fly, and he did quite a bit of flying last year, so he'll do some of it, but he doesn't want to do all of it. And I was able to hire quite a famous guy actually to come and do the flying this year, and he's older too, and he's about 80 years old now. His name is Trapper. What's his first name? He's an old bronc rider. He was actually 7-time Canadian finals.
Oh wow!
Canadian champion bareback rider.
Wild.
And his nickname is Trapper. Everybody, Dale Trotter or Trottier is his name. And he's going to come and fly for us this summer. So he's quite excited to come and see the Mackenzies. He flew 1 year for Stan Simpson years and years ago.
Okay.
He's eager to come back to the Mackenzies.
I'm sure you guys are going to have an awesome summer.
Yeah, he's quite a character.
So when you first came up here, did Northright take you out?
Yep. It was Northright Air. Perry was still here flying, Perry Linton, who he called it Nahanni Air. But no, Warren had been here for many years already. So
you developed a relationship kind of right off the bat.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think the first time I came hunting in '96, Perry flew the Porter out.
The same Porter?
Yeah, no, actually a different one.
Okay.
Yeah.
They did have multiple previously.
Yeah, they've had a couple over the years. But I think that original one is gone now. But Perry's old Porter, Perry was the hunter that flew me out.
The planes were still yellow?
Yeah. What's that?
Were the planes still yellow?
Yeah. At that time they were yellow, that first year. And then they started painting them Northright colors. And I don't remember after that. But yeah, it wasn't too long after that Perry quit flying. He was probably still flying right up till, I'm guessing, 2005 or 6, flying for Northright. That
was after Warren took over?
Yeah, okay. After Warren took over.
Perry stayed on.
Yeah, but Perry would fly the Porter. And maybe they were just leasing it from him still. I think they were probably leasing it from him because he flew the Porter most of the time. Him and Warren were the Porter pilots, yeah. Yeah,
that machine seems to... People really get attached to that, and it's a special machine.
It's a special machine for sure, and lots of stories. Perry knew the mountains really well. He'd flown for so many years, and Warren does as well. But and Travis now.
So how much of the area around Gana River Outfitters do you hunt? Do you hunt in like certain directions because it's easier based on the terrain, or?
We try to hunt anywhere where the hunting will be good, where our clients will be successful. We have some pretty dead country that's gray rock that there's really not much there for animals to live there.
Sure.
And we have some of the area.
That's where the sheep like to go.
Yeah, not so much. They'll survive in places where you wouldn't think so, but. We know kind of the area well enough to know where they like to live, and areas where we just never see them. We don't really spend a lot of time there. And we have a bunch of front range stuff that's outside the front range even. It's just a big swamp out there, and we don't go out there. We can hunt moose in the mountains. We don't need to go out there and fight this muskegs.
Yeah, fair.
Hunt moose, so.
And over the years, have the patterns of where the animals like to spend time shifted, or is it
A
pretty
little bit,
similar?
yeah. We don't see the animals along the height to land, the Yukon border on the divide. I think the snow's been deep deeper than it used to be historically there the last few years. There doesn't seem to be the number.
It's a kind of a natural barrier.
Yeah, the animals are there in the summer, but they don't winter there. So the sheep, we're finding that the sheep don't spend as much time along the border as there used to be. But that couldn't swing. One thing about the animals in the mountains is they adapt to the little bits of patterns of climate modifications and changes. I like to study the rings in the trees, and people think that we're in this amazing warm spell, but you can cut down a 200-300-year-old tree and look at the rings and see where there's places in the history of this tree where it grew faster than it grows today by a lot, and you can see places back then where it didn't grow at all.
Yeah, as far as I've gleaned, we're actually in a rather cold period.
Yeah.
Of human history or of history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the rings in trees tell the story, because you can see when
there's no lying there.
Yeah, where you can see where a tree thrived and produced very well, and in the Mackenzies, it doesn't matter. It's cold. It's the north, so you don't have big 1/4-inch growth rings like you do in down south. But you'll see an area where you can easily see the rings, to where you literally got to have a microscope almost to count them. They're that tight together.
Yeah.
And in the history of a 200-300-year-old tree, you can see those patterns play over and over.
It's cool that you can kind of really count back just on the rings. That's
I cut a tree. My client was a forester from BC, and I cut a tree for firewood. It was about 6-inch diameter tree, and it was standing dead. And cut it and packed it into camp, and I was cutting it up, and I said, have a look and see if you can figure out how old this was. And he couldn't believe it, but if you take a pair of binoculars and turn them upside down, they're like a
microscope?
Well, a little bit like a microscope. Like, you can make it really big. And he was working away, and he figured that tree was about 400 years old.
Whoa.
And it was 6-inch diameter.
Yeah, that's a lot of effort.
Yeah, there's a lot of effort to
just for 6 inches.
For 6 inches of growth. Yeah, it's crazy, but that's the climate when you're trying to grow probably on permafrost. It's cold.
Yeah,
you've got a couple months when your roots are thawed out. If you're lucky, a year, and you hope you get some moisture.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
especially if you're up on the hill, right? You would just get.
Well, this one was on the bars, right on the river where I cut it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was literally growing on the gravel bar on the river, and it still had struggled that much to, and I don't know how long it's been dead.
Well, sure, yeah. Seriously, it could have been dead for.
Yeah. We have a little stand. I found a little stand of timber on the edge of the lake where a little bit of a feeder comes off the mountain of water, and I could see these tall trees. So I went down there one time. I was looking for saw logs to saw some dock lumber out of, and there are trees there that are 2 foot in diameter on the butt and tall, like 60, 70 feet tall. There are some standing there alive and healthy, and there are some that are
those must be
standing there dead as a nit and had been dead for a long time. And there's some laying there that are rotted away, that are that same size, that have rotted away. And it takes 100 years for a tree to rot away in the Mackenzies. It's unbelievable how that little microclimate, because of that feeder creek, how those trees have thrived so much. But they're still hundreds of years old, those big trees.
Well, a 70-foot tall tree in the Mackenzies, that must be hundreds of years old.
Yeah,
hundreds.
Oh yeah. And I don't know if it'd be 70 foot, but probably 50, 60 feet. They're tall.
That's cool. That's one thing that's cool about coming to a place like the Mackenzies, whereas if you're in forest down south, that's new growth basically.
Yeah.
And you're not really standing among historical giants in that way.
No.
Down south.
No, it's cool to look at I try to study the vegetation and see the patterns and in the growth on the trees, and people that tell me that we've never had this climate's warmer than it's ever been before, and I can look at the rings in a tree and say, no, look at how much faster they grew way back then, 150 years ago or whatever. It's pretty amazing. So
So do you have an Alaska mill out there? Is that what you use, or
Yeah.
do you have a regular mill?
No, Alaska mill.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I saw a lot of lumber with Alaska mill over my years. I built quite a few log cabins in the bush for different outfits out in my country out there in Gana. I've done 3.
Do you guys have little remote cabins that you use on hunts?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've got 7 leases. So the base camp and 6 other ones with cabins on.
I see.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So out there.
And how long does a typical client experience last with you?
Our hunts are either 10 days for backpack or 12 days for horseback. And we have some special clients that kind of come and spend a month or whatever.
Sure.
But
you can string
generally
together.
our hunts are 10-day backpack hunts or 12-day horseback hunts.
And do backpack and horse hunts hunt the same animals, or is it distinct?
They hunt the same animals, different territory. Like we have areas that we backpack and areas that we horseback. And,
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we try to make sure that every hunter has some country to hunt that nobody's looked at that year.
I see.
The areas are big enough that we run, about 20 to 24 sheep hunters a year, and then about that many, maybe 20 caribou hunters that are just there to hunt caribou, and then lots of people double up and hunt. If they're hunting sheep, they'll add a caribou.
Mm-hmm. Well, those experiences are so different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and different early season hunting velvet caribou than later in the fall when they get hard-horned, and they're in different.
Do you have
terrain.
much spring activity? Because you're talking about people hunting right now.
Well, we do in April. Usually, the first 2 weeks of April, we do. April 15th is the end of wolverine season, and we hunt them. We go out there because it's a little warmer and the days are longer, and that's when we usually do a spring wolf hunt. So I've got the snow machines out there to do that.
Very, very cool.
Hunt, yeah.
And is there a particular season that you fancy over others? Like, do you prefer spring hunting versus summer hunting?
Yeah, no, I think the summer is everybody's favorite. It's we're lucky we don't have bad bugs in the mountains in our area anyway. The bugs aren't horrific. It's pleasant to be there in the summer with long days and then once you get to fall, everybody loves fall. The colors. The colors are so spectacular. The reds and yellows and oranges and then northern lights start showing in the fall, and so you need the whole experience, I guess.
And have you built many of have you developed the base camp much since you took over?
A lot, yeah. When I got there was, I don't know, 4 or 5 plywood shacks, and they were shacks, like a little bit of multicolored paint slopped on them to make them look a little bit better, but it was what it was, and it was hard times. So, but we started, when Bill was there, my partner, when I bought in with him, we put in the hydro system. So Gana has a hydroelectric system, a micro hydro system. We produce about 8 kilowatts.
Off a little river?
Off the creek. So we generate about 8 kilowatts of power nonstop all summer.
Awesome.
And so that gives us the ability to have whatever we want, tools and lights, and
you generate more power than you need.
We generate more power than we literally waste a whole bunch of power because we have to. That constant load is what governs the system. So we literally dump heat outside just to pull the thing down to the right cycles per second.
And is the creek just like melt? Is that all it is, or is there a spring?
I think that's the same thing. Where does the water come from? It's melt from over the years, finding its way through the rocks. The creek. Right now, the rivers out there are flowing at whatever, maybe 25% of normal flow.
Yeah. Well, it's still frozen mostly.
Yeah, it's still, but there's not, even when you find a place where the river's wide open, there's 25% of the water
you have
would see.
Now?
No, we only run it in the summer.
I see, okay.
Yeah, we only run our system in the summer, but it runs all summer and it works very well, and even when we leave, it's still working fine. We drain it all down and fire it up the next year.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it given us the ability to really improve the camp and make it comfortable and
well, refrigeration and everything, right? Like
refrigeration, and we heat all the hot water in camp with power, so we don't have to fly propane out there for that.
Oh, excellent.
It just saves a whole bunch of stuff. So the system has paid for itself multiple times over the years. Everybody else in the mountains is pretty well gone to solar. I use solar on my remote camps.
Sure.
Just little 12-volt systems for lights and
that's all you really need.
That's all you need, right? Yeah, and they work well. But the hydro at camp is amazing.
That's so cool.
So yeah, we started bringing in some metal, and I said, well, let's go with tan walls and green roofs. That'll be our color code. And we started bringing in metal and cladding all the cabins and insulating them and sheeting the insides. And so
You've done a serious overhaul.
Yeah. So all the cabins, every cabin we have now that people stay in, are insulated, and they have the metal on the outside and sheeting on the inside, and so they're...
It's a big upgrade from like 5 shacks.
It is, yeah. And we've added quite a few cabins. The last one we built kind of specially for the spring hunt, so it's super insulated. It has big enough room so we can have a table in there, and we can sleep in there and eat in there.
You can kind of just do everything
a little
in there.
kitchen, a little kitchen in the corner. We just tear it down for summer when the hunters are eating in the main
you don't
lodge.
want to have to set up heat multiple cabins,
right? We don't want
without power,
and we don't want to try and keep the kitchen warmed up enough to cook and eat in there, because then you thaw out the groceries and freeze them and thaw them out and freeze them, and that's not healthy. So, like the leftover stuff. And we've gone away from a lot of the canned goods, but those cans of stuff freeze once and kind of slowly thaw out once. It doesn't seem to hurt them, but if you're building a fire every day and it freezes and thaws just overnight 100 times, it's not good.
You're asking for mush.
Yeah,
right?
You're asking for mush. And today it's really changed in that most of the supplies we bring in now are freeze dried. So we've gone to freeze dried with everything possible, because it just stays. It's lighter to fly in, and it lasts forever.
So you mostly fly things in. You wouldn't. There's not really another way to bring.
No,
material.
the only way to get supplies out there is fly them in.
Yeah,
so,
that's very cool. Have you spent time in the Mackenzies at the other camp so much, or
no? I've been over to visit Stan at McClure Lake, and I've been to Godlin when Canal owned it to attend meetings. But other than that, I've never been to anybody's camp.
Keeping your little slice of heaven over there.
Yeah.
So in the off season, what occupies your time?
I've been very involved in my career in the territories. I got involved right away with being president of AMO and attending meetings. I got elected to the board of NWT Tourism, served as chair for 2 terms, and I'm still vice chair. So I've done a lot of meetings. I represented the NWT on a hunting advisory panel under the Harper government in Ottawa. I'd go to Ottawa to meetings all the time.
Oh, man.
Yeah, as president of AMO, the Outfitters Association here, we have a National Outfitters Association, so that was a couple meetings a year, one in Ottawa and one in one of the shows in the States usually. So I've always tried to give back in service that way. So when we're not really in the tourism business, but in a way we are. We have to have a tourism license now, and so I've served on the board of NWT Tourism for probably 10, 12 years now, and still on the board. I was going to retire last year, but I told them I would, if they found somebody else to be chair, I would stay on and be vice chair. So, but I've enjoyed those times and made tons of connections. Like, it's important to me. It's important to get to know people, and if you serve at those levels, you get to know ministers and even the premier, right?
Certainly.
At times, I remember going to a tourism conference in Inuvik. That's where it was one year, and Premier, what's his name? Anyway, I sit down on my seat in the airplane, and the guy comes and sits beside me, and it's the premier, and we chatted all day because he had been the Minister of the Environment.
Yeah.
McLeod.
Wow. Blanking here.
Yeah. But anyway, his brother is your MP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, what's his first name? Anyway, he sat beside me, and we chatted the whole way because he'd been environment minister and attended our outfitter meetings as the Minister of the Environment, right? So NWT is a little special place in that you you make connections at really high levels of government.
It's so small.
It's so small, right?
They're like your neighbor.
Oh, yeah. And that's like during COVID. I was chair of NWT during COVID, and I was in meetings with ministers of tourism and with the premier almost weekly through COVID, like just battling to try and have some common sense that we can do stuff. We don't have.
You don't need to cough in each other's faces, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Like we're out there in the mountains. I don't think the virus is going to jump the Mackenzies to get to Norman Wells, right?
Yeah, if anything, you might as well go out there and operate.
Yeah, well, like who's to care, you know? And we lost one season completely. We were able to go out and do some building out there. And
that happened to us too. I was working at the summer camp there. We serve about 500 kids a summer. Yeah. But back when I was working there, and during COVID, we had an American cohort. The managed ownership was American, but the directors were Canadian. So we went up to base camp all summer, just like 4 or 5 of us. Yeah. And built stuff but it was like. It was kind of like spooky because, ever since, early 70s, this place has had youth running around all summer.
And where's that camp at?
In Temagami, Ontario.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we have some islands. We had some, I'm not there anymore, but we have some islands that we operate off of. So it's, in a sense, it kind of feels like what you guys do. Obviously, way more accessible, like we can drive to North Bay in a day and like go to Walmart. But, when you're out there, you can only get there by boat, right? So you're isolated in that sense, and the kids will paddle off the dock and go on 19-day trip and then come right back to the dock. You don't have to do a shuttle in between, so it's magical in that way. Yeah. But that summer over COVID, it was like, we have like 35 buildings and like 5 of us.
Yeah, it was crazy, and that's the way it was. And then it would have been 2021 season.
Yeah,
I worked as chair of NWT Tourism, and Donnelly DeMarc, our executive director, worked with Yukon, and we built proposals to do remote operations where we could be allowed to bring guests in for remote operations. And we eventually got those approved, and so...
Just in time for the pandemic to be over?
Well, it really didn't. We were booking some Canadian clients because the Americans still couldn't come to Canada.
That's right.
Until mid-August, I believe. It was about August 10th or something when the border opened. And I had some guys on standby, Americans, a few, but I think we wound up with 10 or 12 Americans.
Even so, that's kind of hard.
About that many Canadians. So we did about a half a season. We didn't bother bringing the horses up. So we were just in there doing backpack hunts and with a skeleton crew. And it worked well. A young local girl who had worked for us several years, Jazz Bales.
Oh, yeah.
Jazz?
I do.
Yeah, so Jazz came and cooked for us. And
that was 22?
Yeah, in 21, I think.
Okay.
At 22, we had a full season, or whichever way it was.
Yeah.
I think we lost all 20.
21 was the partial was the first operation.
Yeah. And Jazz came and cooked in 20. And then I think she came and cooked in 2022 as well. But she came out there, and it was just...
I met her just as she came back from that trip.
Okay.
I think she gave me some caribou.
Oh, that sounds right, yeah. So anyway, we had actually a pretty good season. We only ran at about less than half of the clients, but we had way less crew, and we didn't haul the horses up and go to all that.
I was going to say, it's hard on those American clients to, like, wait.
Yeah.
Because, like, they could just go somewhere else, but they want to go up north, but you don't know if it's going to be open.
Well, and there wasn't many places they could go. There was some international hunts that went right through COVID.
Well, they could go hunting in Texas or whatever.
They could hunt in Texas or whatever.
Yeah.
I've never done so much paperwork in my life as shuffling everybody down the calendar 2 years. Shuffle them 1 year thinking, well, we'll for sure be open next year. Yeah. And then, oh no. And even when at first we were literally scheduled to come out to do this wolf hunt, in 2 weeks it was middle of March when they shut it down.
Yes.
And that was it. We couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Shuffling 2 years of clients down the calendar.
It's hard on the business.
It was just, and some people it didn't work for, and then it was a lot of work.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But it was frustrating because in the end, looking in hindsight, it really wasn't as big a deal as it was. It was a bunch of scared stuff to scare us into submission. I don't know. I still don't understand why it all happened. But
Yeah.
in hindsight, there's a whole big hoopla about nothing, right? Like, I think about the worst one to me was what they did to our children.
I agree.
In shutting down the schools. And in hindsight,
especially since they were barely affected.
Children are at zero risk.
Yeah.
Zero.
I know.
Yeah.
I still hear stories from parents, and mostly parents who have like kids who are now like 13, 14, where those kids were like in middle school or like really in the thick of it, and still have a hard time in crowds.
Well, and I'm very involved in school. My kids go to a little Christian school at home, and I'm on the board there as well, and very involved. But little kids like grade oneers and kids that would have been in kindergarten then, they have never really recovered from that.
Well, and there's no data to tell us what it does to a grade one kid to not, be taking in facial expressions from their teachers. Right. You know what I mean? Like those kinds of things are innate things that we've been learning for, millennia and kind of using to develop. And then all of a sudden it's just eyes that you get. And I don't know. Again, this is the kind of thing where there's these like unintended consequences that we just brush under the rug.
Yeah. No, it's too bad, but it is what it is. I know another thing I should talk to you about is that I've always believed that the industry's been good to me. The outfitting here has been really good to us as a family, and I have family that'll take over when I decide I've had enough, and that's cool. But I always look for a way to go back, and like I said, I always felt like you have to serve where you need it, and so I've served on different boards and gone to so many meetings over the years. I'm doing less and less of that now.
Sure.
But I was at a tourism conference in Hay River one year, and just visiting with people and talking to people. I was probably on the board at that time, I don't know. But anyway, a young girl came and sat at the table where I was, and we started visiting. I think her name was Amy Lazat. Anyway, she was a director with Northern Youth Leadership, and she asked what I did, and I said, I'm an outfitter. I have one of the outfitting concessions in the Mackenzies. And she says, would you be interested in hosting a youth camp? And I said, I'd love to.
That would be awesome. Why not, right? Yeah.
And she looked at me like totally taken aback, like, and she said, really? And I says, no, I'd love to. And I'm all in, is what I told her. And she says, well, what do you mean all in? How much will it cost us if we bring some kids out there? And I said, I'm all in. It won't cost you nothing. If you can get out there, we'll feed you and house you. And
well, your costs aren't excessive. Once you like the flights and all that, those add up.
That adds up. But our association, I usually pick up one of the flights. The association picks up one of the flights, so they pay their staff to come out there, and probably a charter or two is all it costs them to come and do the camp. So we've done the youth camp for, Jazz and Neoka, those ones came out through the camp. I knew them anyway, and because I'd known Andrew, their dad, and he flew them. The little girls were out riding horses at our camp years ago, right, when they were wee little. But still, you make those connections, right? And so a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of hopefully, stuff into the kids out there. I think lots of the kids that have been at the youth camp, we have a schedule, and they have a little chore to do. Like after breakfast, you got to sweep. Somebody's got to sweep the floor. Somebody's got to do the dishes.
Sure.
But I'm sure lots of those kids have never had 3 squares a day in their life that have been out there, And it's neat, and we start out doing some hiking, and if there are elders there, the elders work with them. But I like to take them on a hike, and the first hike's a fairly long one. Well, the first one we do a short one, and then we do a couple days later we do a little longer one where they probably go about close to probably 10K by the time they're back. But it's not a whole bunch of climbing or anything, but it's walking on rough trails, and go down to the end of the valley and then have lunch and then turn around and walk back. And some of them don't think
that kind of stuff is formative for kids.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
But they learn that they can get there. The one year we had a girl that she was ready to give up, and she was way behind, and my wife waited with her. And finally Laura says, well, if you're going to give up, then I got to go cook supper, and hopefully the bears don't get you before somebody comes looking for you, because I've got to go make supper for everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And so this girl did it, Well, she rested for 2-3 days, and the next thing you know, we go to the top of the mountain on our last hike, and she went up to the top of the mountain without complaining at all.
Well,
she realized, you know what, I can do this.
Well, one of those things that's...
And the real cool part of this story is when I talked to the leaders the next year, they said she actually just totally, like you flipped a switch, she's actually one of the leaders in training now.
Well, one of the things, it's like, I heard this somewhere, but it's what's so striking is how little encouragement some people need to step up like that.
Yeah.
And it is indicative of where our culture is at, that there isn't that, they haven't even received that.
Right.
You know, and I keep coming back to the summer camp, but it's such a parallel to your experiences out there is we take 10 to 12-year-olds on a 10-day trip.
Right. Yeah.
And they can do it.
They can do it. Oh, yeah. No, they can do it. They just need to be encouraged and come to understand, I can do this.
Well, and it's okay for them to fail and break down and cry.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You shouldn't avoid crying. Like, it's fine. No. And then, you know, sometimes we get kids who demand to go home or whatever. And you go, you know, the fastest way to get home is to pick up your pack and keep going. Because we're going that way.
Yeah. No, it's cool to see the kids change. We had one young kid, young boy from, I don't remember, one of the communities in the South Slave. And I don't even remember his name now, but he loved to cook. He would get up and 5 a.m. and be in the kitchen with my wife to help make breakfast because he loved cooking.
Totally.
And I offered him a job. I said, why don't you come and work for the summer and as a kitchen helper?
Did he take you up?
I'll take you up. And he was so excited he wanted to come. I had a plane ticket. And the day he was supposed to fly to Normandy Wells, his mom wouldn't let him go.
That's tragic.
It's tragic. It broke my heart because I'm sure it had to break in his.
Oh my God.
He was so looking forward to coming and planning it, and then his mom made him go to Edmonton and hang out in the city with his cousins all summer.
I'm sure that was so healthy for him.
Yeah.
And
I think of the change that, you know, he would have gone depressed and dejected, and what would he have turned his life into? I have no idea where he is today or what he's doing.
It's something like that can be the pivotal moment in someone's life.
That can be that pivotal moment. He
Yeah.
can come out there and see, you know, he could be a chef in a restaurant somewhere today.
But even just, it's wow, I have something to offer and people value me for that.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that opportunity to contribute,
Yeah.
and that's what I think is so great about these kind of remote outfits, whether it be summer camp or whether it be, you know, your camp in the Mackenzies, is that you can bring people in and they can contribute and see a direct impact right away.
Right.
And when you're isolated like that, you don't need, like when you're here, there's systems and there's restaurants or whatever. Like there's systems that kind of hold us up. But out there, it's like, well, there's no breakfast. Why is there no breakfast? Well, you didn't wake up.
You didn't cook it. Yeah. I know. And it teaches you that you know what, you are the master of your own destiny, right?
We always called it natty cons, as natural consequences.
Yeah.
It's like if you leave your rain jacket out, it's gonna get rained on. You know?
Yeah. You lose your knife. Guess what? You're in trouble, right? Like all the decisions we make affect us down the road, right? One of the clients that was just out there said he tries to tell kids that, he said, our life is like a book, and you write this book one page at a time.
Yeah.
But everything that you write in that book, what you do, what the decisions you make, affects what's on the next page.
Yeah, certainly.
Absolutely. And that's exactly how our lives work, right? Every decision we make has a consequence down the road somewhere.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And when the sad thing to me is kids today there was a young girl in the restaurant this morning, an Indigenous girl, and I can't remember her name, but she said, I haven't been on the land for about 6 years. Like, and we were showing her pictures of out there, and she was so amazed. But they sit at home and play on the phone.
Yeah, I know.
It's sad. Right?
Yeah.
It's sad. Like,
are you still doing the youth camps?
Yep. Well, we hope to. I'm not sure what's going on. They said they might have to cancel it this year, but I talked to Jazz, said maybe we can just put together a few kids from the community here to come out there.
Yeah, you don't need much organization around it. Like once they're out there, you take over, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't have all like when you're working with kids, you're supposed to have all these safety procedures and all that.
You need a chaperone, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't have that. Like Northern Youth supplied all of that stuff.
Yeah.
They had all the safety plans and all that stuff, and we just housed and fed them. And I worked with the kids lots and did lots of survival skills, taught them how to build a fire snare, rabbit, all those things. But they, it's never been my youth camp. It's been Northern Youth's camp. Right?
Sure.
But if they bail on this camp this year that we've planned, I've got the tickets bought to fly up and set up camp for them and everything for my family. And if they bail, then I'm going to shift gears and go somewhere else and try and do something to work with kids, because I really enjoy it. It's rewarding.
It's such it's work of the soul.
Yeah.
It really fills you up.
Well, it really is. I mean, and if we change the life for the better of 1 or 2 kids a year, it's worth every bit.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
By far.
Yeah.
By far.
I mean, that's where Jazz and Naoka and Hanny, they all have worked for us over the years. That's where they got their start, was at youth camp, all of them. Yeah.
I don't exactly know who listens to my show, but if there's a kid listening who's interested in coming out and working with you, how could he reach out? Especially the thing that you need to remember, I feel like if you're listening, what you need to remember is like, my guess is that you're open to it, but you got to know that you got to work hard.
Yep.
Right.
And you've got to want to be there. I mean,
yes.
I've had people say, well, why don't you train some young guides? And I said, you find me a young person that really wants to do it,
yes,
is willing to come out there and spend 2-3 months and bust his butt on.
Well, they got to be a net contributor, right?
Yeah, you got to. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Like I can't teach young kids to be guides, or if they don't want to be.
Exactly.
Somebody can't make them go out there and think that I can change them.
No,
they've got to want that, right?
Yeah. Well,
and there are a few that do. I have a young Indigenous guy, a kid from. He was from Enterprise Hay River. His grandma ran the Enterprise store, Henry Bowden, but he's a Satu beneficiary.
Yep.
His family was originally from Toledo. And he's worked for me 2 years now as a packer, a campy and a packer, and this year he'll be guiding. A really good, hard-working young man. His grandma talked to me in Hay River at the tourism conference and asked me if I would train him. She said he went to a guide school in the Yukon, but all the guy that ran this guide school wanted him to do was cut firewood, and he said he already knows how to cut wood. But he's a good, hardworking kid, and he is. He's a really likable, personable young man.
He doesn't need to just cut firewood.
And he passionately wants to be a guide, and he's like a sponge, just soaking it all in the whole time he's there. So yeah, it's taken a couple of years to get him with the skills he needs, but he'll be guiding this summer.
That is excellent.
So it's cool.
Well,
right?
It's one of the things where it's like, people often are intimidated to take the first step to just ask, but there's generally there's so much reciprocity available if you ask for it.
And I think pretty much, and not maybe all the outfitters, but most of the outfitters, if they have a kid that asked if they could come out and start training, would take them on, especially even if it's just probationary. Okay, we'll guarantee you 2 weeks. If you like it, then we'll go to a month. And if you like it, we'll go to 2 months. And if you work hard and do your job and you're interested, right? Yeah. So it's, and I can see how some kids wouldn't know whether that's what they want. But if they have that stirring in their heart that they want to be part of the land, they want to learn those skills, and a lot of it is traditional skills, right?
Totally.
Yeah, hunting is hunting. And we've got new equipment and fancy stuff.
Well, and it's
hunting.
On top of everything you're saying, it's skills and an attitude and a demeanor that will serve you for your whole life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of the skill set that you need to be a really good guide is a communicator.
Totally.
You need to build knowledge of the land and the flora and the fauna, and be able to talk to the guy and have a conversation.
Not to mention the connections you'll make with clients as well.
You get opportunities. You go out there and thrive and do a good job, and almost every client will say, well, if you're ever down Texas, come see me. If you're ever in wherever, Louisiana, come and see me. We had clients last year that were from Georgia, and they desperately want me to come down and hunt gators. Like
you should do that.
Oh yeah, I should. It sounds like a hoot. And they don't just go around and shoot them. You've got to hook them or get a line on them with a bow with a barbed arrow, and get the thing along the boat and have it subdued under control before you can actually kill it. And they said on a big gator, that might be a 6-hour battle.
Damn. Well, those things don't want to subdue. No.
And when they start thrashing a big one, it can be pretty exciting. I can see that that's quite a challenge. So yeah, it's a totally different thing than what I'm used to. Right?
Yeah. Well, I maintain to this day, like, even though my years as a canoe guide wasn't like the most, it didn't set me up like, I didn't come out with like tons of savings or anything like that. It filled me up and gave me the skills that have benefited economically into the future. Right. Like, regardless of whether or not I was making like, you know, a living wage out in the bush, that wasn't the point. Yeah. The point was that you built up the skills to then be a human being that people would want to interact with, and you could provide, you know.
And one thing about remote operations and lands, like when I said I worked in the oil field, I worked seismic on drilling rigs, but there's remote camps, and there wasn't we were out camped in the middle of nowhere, and when something broke down, you had to fix it.
There's a resourcefulness that you do need to.
And I had a period in my life between when I guided in BC for 3 years and I actually became part of Gana for about 10, 12 years, where I owned cats and did construction work. So but all those skills that you learn doing different things, you grow up on a farm, you have a bunch of skills. But at camp, we've got a hydro system. I'm the electrician. Everything's got plumbing. I'm the plumber. But you learn all those skills, like log building. So over your life, if you want to, you can learn a lot of stuff. And I'm not maybe the best in any of those skills, but when you live out in the bush, you better be able to fix something that's broken. You better be able to.
When you're out in the bush, you're the best around.
Yeah, you're the best there is. Yeah, and you're it. So, but the skill set that you acquire over time is unbelievable.
Yeah,
right?
It's very diverse.
It's very diverse, and it needs to be because out there, helps a long ways away, especially.
Especially in the Mackenzies.
In the Mackenzies.
It's about as remote as you can get.
And in the good old days when we didn't have instant communication, your destiny was in your hands and nobody else's. There was no help.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there's something magical about that too, because it brings you back down to earth.
Yeah, it does. And we're always out there. Like if you're out there by yourself, you totally are the master of your own destiny. Yeah. And you better, not take stupid risks. There's always risk, but And I believe very much in a God that he's the one ultimately looking after me, right? So there you go. You put your trust in him and
keep
do
your
your
wits
best,
about
and
you.
that's all you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Harold, thank you for coming on.
Oh, it
was an absolute pleasure to talk to you and get to know you. And
pleasure chatting as well.
I hope that your summer goes swimmingly this summer.
Oh yeah. Hopefully we have a good summer and the weather stays somewhat moderate.
I'll try and hop on a Northright flight out there somehow. Come and visit you.
Come for a visit this summer, see camp when it's a buzz.
Yeah, that'd be really wicked.
Yeah.
Well,
sounds great.
Excellent, man. Cheers.